there's a no-contact rule. It states that no student should ever be touching another student.
Yeah, there should be no cuddling, rough or play fighting, no carrying of another student, and pupils should sit properly on benches and not overcrowd. I mean, there is a serious point to this, isn't there, about the inappropriateness of touching. I mean, I suppose that gets to the heart.
But is it the right way forward to ban it all together? Is it a sensible move to teach students mutual respect, or has it gone a bit over the top? We're joined now by education specialist Steve Chalk, who says the no-contact rules are inhumane, and by writer and comedian Ava Vidal, who says there's no need to hug, plus rough play in schools can easily get out of hand. Good morning to both of you. Thanks for joining us. So, Steve, let's come to you first because, you know, the reason why they're bringing this no-contact rule in is that they say it will teach mutual respect, it will improve the school culture. Doesn't it just make it clear for pupils just to sort of get rid of it altogether so there's no misunderstanding?
Well, first thing I'd say, it's a bit of a joke, really. But first of all, we run lots of schools in Manchester and around the country. We would never introduce this. It is inhuman or subhuman because schools, as we know, aren't just about history and geography and maths and English. They're about emotional and social development and appropriate touching. All of that is part of education. It's important to understand, of course, that there are clear safeguarding regulations in place in every school in the country already, and every school is accountable to its local authority. I won't go into the details of that, but every school has what's called a single central record. So everything has to be monitored and written down really carefully. But to stop kids interacting with each other is daft. We've all heard of that, the survival of the fittest, Darwin, and the theory of the survival of the fittest. But I don't know if you know, Charlotte, that there's been a huge body of research over the last 10, 20 years that uses the title The Survival of the Friendliest. Humans survived, Homo sapiens survived, because we could collaborate and work together. So throw your arms around your friend when they're sad or when they're happy. What are you going to do to celebrate a goal in netball or football? What do you do on it when you get on results day? What do you do for year 6 on leaving day in the leaving assembly? This is all part of education. Being human.
Steve, let's ask Ava, just put your arms round your friends. What's wrong in that?
I don't think there's really any need for it. I think we need to be really clear that we're being distinct between primary school and secondary schools. So I think when it comes to secondary schools, where this rule is actually being implemented, there's a whole load of other things that come into play. And I could understand why they brought this rule in.
When you were at school, did you never hug anybody, shake anybody's hand, high five, nothing like that?
No, I went to boarding school and we were all heartless.
Ever.
Oh, come on. You must have given someone a hug at some point. Even you.
I did. I'm only teasing. Look, I'm also seeing it from a different point of view. There's a couple of things that I thought about when I sort of read the story. I thought, oh, that makes sense. There's been a couple of times where there's been kids that have been bullying, and I remember at school with the rugby boys dragging other little boys around, and I remember them turning around and going, oh, come on, it's only a joke. Look, you're happy with it, aren't you? And, you know, they'd have this kid's head under their arm, they'd be punching him, going, come on, you love it, you love it. So I could see about bullying accusations being misconstrued. I could also see, I know, and this is on a more serious note, that my friend's son was trying to be friendly to a girl in the school who didn't have many friends, and he put his arm around her. That led to months of harassment for him. He was getting threatened because she said she was uncomfortable with it. He was getting threatened with it going on his record forevermore. You know, so I can understand things like that. We don't hug at work all day long. You know what I mean? So by the time you get to secondary school, I think I understand it. Okay.
Well, Steve, there is a serious point in this about boundaries as well, isn't there? And if people don't understand boundaries, maybe you do need to have strict rules because, you know, there is bullying, there can be inappropriate behaviour, and we know in the past this has just gone unreported and we've just put up with it. But, you know, this is all part of that as well, isn't it? That we do need to be more conscious and more aware of what's happening around us.
Absolutely, we need to, and Ava's exactly right about that. But in all schools, there are boundaries in place. There's process in place. There really is. It so happened once I'd been phoned and you'd asked me to come on this morning. It so happened that last night I was with 4 of our head teachers, 2 primary heads and 2 secondary heads. So I told them about this conversation this morning. They all operate schools in tough communities, where there's a huge amount of need. They were all aghast that you might impose a rule anywhere that prevents kids from touching one another. Of course, it's got to be appropriate, but I say again, that there's safeguarding rules in place, and all schools are accountable externally to Ofsted and to their local authority. And that happens on a daily basis to the local authority. There's somebody called the LADO, without getting too confusing, the local authority designated officer. And if there's any breach in terms of serious bullying, etc., a school is accountable. So all that exists. Right. But we've got to allow kids to be kids and be human, and we are social.
OK. Ava, coming back to you, I mean, we've got lots of people getting in touch about this. So far, I have to say, no one is in support of the ban, to be honest with you. Ian's got in touch to say nanny state, no contact, they're kids. It's going to get to the stage where no one speaks to anybody in case they're offended. Dean says what's going on in this world, they'll end up producing robotic people with no empathy or real feelings. I mean, when you have a situation, we were reading, there's one example of a friend who hurt their finger and they had to ask for permission to hug their friend because they were hurt. I mean, don't you think that that's going too far?
I don't, I'm afraid. I just think in this current climate, I think with Me Too, I think with everything that's happening, I think with young girls learning boundaries of what is appropriate, what is not appropriate. And like I said, I think we really do have to protect young boys as well. And if you want to put a sort of more intersectional lens on it, I do know that a lot of time children of colour I know there's measures and stuff in place, and there's place that you're accountable to. It doesn't stop a lot of children of colour being accused of bullying, being accused of being aggressive, being accused of being boisterous. And if they're not allowed to jump on each other's backs, if they're not allowed to be, running and knocking each other over, I think that adds another layer of protection for them. Okay. And we're not saying don't hug your children at home. We're talking about, literally school hours. That's all.
Ava and Steve, thank you both for joining us this morning.